Good morning. Get some tea in this morning because I've had 6 cups of coffee, so I'm good with the coffee. Good morning, everyone. This is Stacy. We are loving my veteran, and this is walking in my shoes this morning. Let me give this thing a second to catch up. It's always interesting how it takes the computer a little different. Sorry for the lighting. I know it's horrible, but it's the best we have. We're getting ready to get out of here and head back to Georgia here shortly. So it's been a good vacation, good for all of us. So lots going on. Let me just bring everybody up to speed. Today is Tuesday. Tomorrow night we have Stephanie doing her wellness tips for our personal survivor, which is amazing. And you know how much we adore Stephanie to be able to do that for us. She is always so insightful. Thursday we have a regular Let's Talk. Just follow the link. And if you have not gotten your tickets to the preview of the movie, we really need to get that done so that we can get into that as well. Let me try to grab a few things here. Like I've lost the mouse. You know, this is one of those. Being on vacation, sorry, y'all, getting kind of like a view of the room. So I don't do well with all of this technical stuff when I'm not at home where I belong. Squat, it's trying to do all kinds of things. So I'm hoping you can see me. There we go. So good morning. We're going to talk about rules of engagement. Kind of interesting stuff to be talking about here. So, and how do you engage with somebody who's disengaged? So for whatever reason, I can't see the comments guide. I'm sorry, y'all. We'll see how that works in a minute. Again, I'm telling you, technical difficulties is always insightful. So here we are. Let's talk about rules of engagement. How do you talk to somebody when they're disengaged? That seems to be one of the number one questions I get a lot. They're disengaged. How do we talk to them? How do we have a conversation with somebody who is completely and totally disengaged? And it's tough. I'm not going to lie to you. It is a tough journey. It is a interesting place to be. So we have to go through that. And we have to find what works as we go through this periods of disengagement. So what causes disengagement? First of all, we try to communicate with our veterans so often, and they're in a place. They're in a spot. They don't want to talk about things. They sit there. It's like you're talking to the wall or you're talking through them. They have minimal eye contact at times, and you feel like you're speaking a language that absolutely nobody understands. And so what happens in that world? What happens when we get like that? Well, is it possible to engage with somebody who's disengaged? Yes, it is. But the thing we have to think about more often is this. We too tend to be disengaged. We too tend to get to that disengaged state. We may not be disengaged physically like they are, where they're sitting in that space just staring and not doing anything. But when we become overwhelmed, completely and totally overwhelmed, we become disengaged. We have so much going on. You know, we feel like we're fighting the battle alone. We feel like we're talking to the wall. We feel like we're the one fixing dinner and getting the kids off to school and doing all the 900 things that go on. We are trying to do all that. And the problem is that when we do that, we become disengaged. We become disengaged. And mentally, we are frustrated. And mentally, we are tired. So mentally, we are completely and totally disengaged. So we're not doing anything because we're in that disengaged state. So what happens when we're in that disengaged state? How do we begin? Oh, good. Now I can see the comments. It's kind of weird. We get frustrated. We get angry. We get to to this point where we are not engaged in a conversation either, because we're burned out, because we're mentally checked out. So we are mentally disengaged. How are we going to have a conversation when in our minds it becomes, why am I even trying? Because we're going to do the same thing over and over and over again, and we're not going to get any results. So we've checked out too. When both parties are disengaged, you're never going to go anywhere. Think about the most basic of machines, okay? They have cogs and wheels, and they all have little sprockets. And in order for things to move, the sprockets have to intertwine, right? And so this turns, and then it turns this, and then it moves, right? And that's how things become engaged. Well, when our sprocket doesn't engage, when we are not engaged, nothing happens. We're turning over here. They're sitting here, and we're turning, and we're not kicking that connection. So we're not engaged, and nothing happens. We're trying, but mentally we're not there. So how do we do that? How do we get to a point where both parties become engaged? I know y'all are probably tired of hearing me say this, but you have to clear your own mind. You have to clear your own mind. Clearing your mind is essential in this process. Clearing your mind is critical in this process. You have to let go. You have to let go of that anger. You have to let go of that frustration. And you have to heal yourself mentally before you can try to engage. So think of yourself as this wheel, right? That wheel that's spinning, and all your teeth are worn off from exhaustion, from frustration, from banging your head into the wall, from doing all the things that we do, right? Good morning, Melissa. From doing all the things that we do, and all of our teeth are gone. When our teeth are gone, we're not going to engage. It doesn't spin when it's just got something flat going against something flat. They have to mesh. So if our teeth are gone, they're not going to ever mesh. If our teeth are not there because we are so exhausted, we aren't going to work. We become their voice. We have to back up sometimes, and we get so tired and so frustrated. So take a step back and become your own voice for a minute. Get unengaged. Get out of this deepness. Because while we may physically be doing things, mentally we are not engaged. And that is important for everybody to understand. So how do you get past this? You start to clear your head. One, you have to take it that it's not personal. Two, they build up walls. We all build up walls. They build up walls of self-protection. Come on through. We build up walls of self-protection. And when you try to come in there with this explosive thing and blow the walls apart, nothing happens. So it's a chiseling effect. It's a little bit at a time. Remember the whole PTSD concept, right? We have that whole concept going on. So we have to be able to do this, and I'm looking at both things. So we have to be able to start small. Where do you start small? You start small by getting yourself right. You start small by allowing yourself grace. You start small by understanding that they're pushing you to the side is not personal. They shut off. They mentally shut off. They don't do things because they're mentally shut off. Does it make it right? No. Does it make it a self-coping mechanism for them? Absolutely. And that's what happens. So the more they shut off, the more anger we build, the more resentment we build, the madder we get. So now when we try to have a conversation, we go in and we're like, we're going to just start and have this conversation, and we're going to try to force them to become engaged. And when we do that, this explosion happens, and it is not effective. So start small. This is the way to start small. When they are disengaged, a lot of times you'll hear they're watching TV, they're playing their game, they're oblivious to what we have going on. Start small. Be in the room with them. You don't have to have a conversation. Be in the room with them. Engage in their world even though they're not speaking. Mental engagement is important. Use that time. Carl watches Marvel and Transformers. We've probably watched it 1,000 times, or at least I feel like it, right? Okay? We've watched it probably 1,000 times. But sit in the room with them. Sit in that room with them for a minute. Just start being in their presence. Now you become familiar without aggression. How many times do we have conversations with them because we want to say something that the conversation becomes confrontational? How many times do we come forward and try to say stuff and it becomes negative or confrontational? We all do it because we get frustrated. And then Nakia's talking about becomes volcanic. That's me. Y'all, when Carl and I get into it, I have kept all this crap bottled up inside of me. My anger, my frustration, my feeling dumped on, my rage, my him not being engaged, my this, now my everything. And what happens in that situation is simply this. I become volcanic and spew. And that is never helpful, because I have to have an outlet. So do both. Become engaged in their space. Become engaged. None of this happens quick. So if anybody is expecting a quick fix, there's not. I'm not going to lie to you. There is no quick fix. It doesn't happen that way. But become part of their space. You don't have to have a conversation in their space. Just be part of their space. Okay? You just have to be part of their space. When you're part of their space, you become familiar. When you're part of their space without aggression or finger pointing or spewing our volcanic ash, you become comfortable and familiar, and you're no longer seen as a threat. And I know this sounds really hard to understand. Okay? It is very hard to comprehend at times. But it is important that we do that. Then as you've gotten into their space, you get closer. The next thing you do is you lay in there, like I lay on the couch and I put my head on the pillow next to Carl. He likes that. It is part of being in his space. It is part of his familiar for us. And when that closeness and that connection starts, you can start to have conversations. You can start to be engaged. I don't care if it's 10 minutes or 20 minutes that you're doing this, even if you're doing nothing but clearing your mind while you're laying there in their space. Okay? You have to have that space together, that connection, and not be a threat. It is part of their mindset. You want positive change. This is how it comes. Are we going to backslide? Yes, there are times that I come at him like a bull up in the china shop. But I'm telling you, on the days that I do, we get nowhere. So when you learn to be part of their space and the comfort starts to happen, the engaging starts. Because everybody is a self-protector. We all try to protect ourselves. It is human nature that we protect ourselves. So when people attack us, whether it is our spouse, whether it is our boss, whether it's our friends on Facebook, whether it's somebody else who's a pod on Facebook that's got some comment, we all try to protect the space. Okay? We all try to protect ourselves. That's what we all do. We are all self-protectors. So we put up walls where we don't let people in. We put up walls and boundaries where we don't let stuff happen to us. And they have done the same thing. And sometimes when they get disengaged and their mind is in a space, we can't go in that space because we are not safety in that space for them, because they're not used to us being in the space. Being in the space is important. Being present in the space is important. And you have to self-protect yourself. Like Michelle said, she pulls away to protect her spirit. And yes, you have to do that. You have to do that. But you can protect your spirit in the same physical space without there being confrontation. The way and this has taken me a long time to understand this. There are some things that are crisis critical we have to talk about right this minute, and it needs an answer. But most of what we have going on is not crisis critical. And if it's been happening for months and months and months and months, if it's been happening for months like that, then what difference does it make if it takes another couple weeks? If you're going to make progress, what difference does it make? You got to rebuild that foundation. So being engaged starts small. It was tough. We have to learn that self-protection. We have to learn to be in that space. But when you're in that space, you don't have to cater to them. You just have to become familiar. Stop catering. Stop enabling. Just become familiar. When you do that, the rest will fall into place. The rest will fall into place. And you know that I'm all about, being like blatantly honest. So, I think about like even the small things for me. When I go on vacation, I know this is going to sound strange, but when I go on vacation and I get in a strange bathroom, I can't poop. I have to be there a day or two before I can poop, because I have to poop in familiar. Then that's the same concept that goes on here. You have to do this stuff where you start small. Girl, I love you. Put up that finger. Hold tight. Wait right there. Just wait right there. I love that. So again, we have to be familiar. Set your boundaries. It is like a slow, steady progress, victory wall race. We're not running. Tortoise in the hare. Remember, tortoise in the hare. It all happened. So that's how you're going to start to engage. You're going to start to engage by being in each other's space. And when you start to do that, and you start to heal yourself, and you start to let go of your own resentment, which is a big deal. Letting go of our own resentment is a big deal, because I would resent him for everything, and not realize it. Like, I wouldn't say things because I didn't want to trigger him, right? I don't sleep at night because I'm worried about you. Well, then stop worrying about me. Yeah, and so I felt guilty. And so then I didn't say anything. And of course, that created a whole new story, which is doubt. So that was another whole topic. So I do say things to him now. Going to town. If I said, do you want to go to town, or we need to go to town, and I don't like town any more than he does, okay, but do you want to go to town, or we need to go to town, and he wouldn't go, and so I'm going by myself again, I would get angry and I would get resentful. Same thing about where do you want to eat. I stopped choosing places to eat because I was so afraid that if I chose the place to eat, it would be the wrong place and we'd end up in a situation. And then I stopped. Because we're either going to end up in a situation or we're not going to end up in a situation. So I stopped because every time he didn't go to town, or every time I chose a restaurant, I didn't choose a restaurant that I wanted, and I kind of let him pick the restaurant, right? And even though it was a place I didn't want to go, I got resentful because we don't eat out very often. So I got very resentful. And I felt so resentful. So that when we finally had conversations, and it could be some totally off the wall conversation about, well, just a normal conversation, like, hey, hun, I'm in a spot, and he would come to me to open up. I'm in a spot, this bothered me. Okay, so he would say, this bothered me. And what did I do? On cue, because I had all this anger and all this resentment, I asked him to open up. We all ask, open up, talk to us, engage in us, start talking to us. And so they start talking. And of course, you feel like crap when they're talking because you always think it's directed at you, right? And so then you kick in your defense mechanisms, and everything that you have pushed down in your own and built up this resentment in your head comes out like a volcanic eruption of spew of crap because you're now trying to protect yourself. And all this resentment, and what happens is we've asked them to open up. They do. And we turn it around to make it all about us because we've built up so much resentment and so much anger and so much frustration, and now we don't understand why nobody engages. That's why. So start small, little engagements in the physical presence, and then you'll start to have conversations. And then the little conversations, don't discuss big stuff, the little conversations will make communication better. And sometimes you just have to let them vent and not take it personally because it's not all personal. And we tend to take it personally. We do it all the time. If you want Chinese, then freaking go get it. Because I've discovered that when I want Chinese and I don't get it and I get uptight, he doesn't really give a shit what we eat anyway, and he's going to bitch about whatever we have anyway if he's in a mood to bitch. So it doesn't matter. And then I'm looking at Michelle sitting down here. The problem is that she doesn't spew. I don't need you to spew, but I need you to be honest and tell people how you feel. Spewing is never a good thing. But not talking about what is going on because we want to protect them never gets us anywhere but building up resentment in our own mind. And that's what happens. When we don't talk about the issues, it builds up resentment in our own mind. Again, prioritize those issues. Remember, I said that. Not everything is a fire. Not everything is a you have to evacuate right now and is an emergency. Not everything is that. It is not all that. So you have to let it go. Yeah, you have to pick and choose. And when you do, your engagement is going to become so much better. And sometimes we don't talk to them because they generally show us that they don't care about our feelings. That you're right. You're right, Stephanie. It happens. But when you learn the rules of engagement, there are times that he does care about your feelings. And sometimes they just don't show it. And shutting down a lot of times shutting down a lot of times is their way not to hurt you. And it's just like me not telling Carl when I don't feel good. I do it because I don't want to hurt him, because I don't want to keep him up at night, because I don't want him to worry about me. And sometimes they shut down because they don't want to do the same in return to us. And the only way they know how to do it is to shut down and close us off. And all that does is hurt us more. And then when we try to push in that door, the hate, the anger, the spewing, the venom, all comes running out of their mouths too. This is a two-way street. This is a two-way street. It's hard to live in a world where you feel like you are the blame for everything that has ever gone wrong in a life. Okay? It's hard to live in that world. And it's not just with our veteran, y'all, it's with everybody. How many times do people tell us that we feel like everything is our fault? First of all, I tend to personalize everything. That's me. I tend to personalize everything. And it is not always personal. That's a big deal. It is a big deal for me to understand that it is not always personal. So when I get this way where I make everything personal, then my anger, my rage, my frustration comes out, and we're not engaging in anything meaningful because I'm worked up or he's worked up. And we are, as Carl puts it all the time, he says we're butting heads. And he'll look at me now when we get into it, and he'll say, we need to stop because all we are doing is butting heads. We're saying the same thing, or we are both saying things that are hurtful to the other and not going to the root of the problem that was the problem to begin with. And we do it. We all do it. That's how engagement starts, is in baby steps. Clearing your own head first. I go back over and over and over again, and I talk about the lifeguard concept. As a lifeguard, you don't jump in the water with the drowning person. You have to be solid and throw them the buoy. And we forget to be solid. We tend to put our emotions, our emotional well-being, everything we do, we put on the back burner. Everything we do, we put us on the back burner. And it is never a good situation when you put yourself on the back burner, especially when the only heat source is coming off the front burner. You can't live your life this way. And Nakia is right. Nakia is so right. The stop sign thing, the being able to step away. Being able to step away. Heather, I'm reading yours. It is hard, and he's not ready to talk. Take this time to heal you. We don't realize how much healing we need. How important it is for us to heal. And yes, you have that right to address your feelings, and you should address your feelings. But we can't do anything till we learn how to engage, and that is fight fair. Girl, you are not giving up on nothing. I will come up there and just get you back in order. You are so strong, Stephanie, and I know it's frustrating. And the kids better play soccer in May in Savannah so we can just have some us time. So we can have some us time. But y'all, it is about self-preservation. Self-preservation. And again, I agree with Nakia. She's like our hero and our veteran. I journal everything. I write everything. I, I I write down everything. My emotions, my feelings, my everything. Girl, we'll just have to get together anyway. Stephanie and I are just gonna get together. We'll meet somewhere halfway. I write everything down. My emotions are key to getting them out. That's just how I get them out. Because you have to find an outlet for your emotions. You have to find an outlet for your emotions. And paper sometimes is it. And it's funny, when we were cleaning up some stuff, Carl found one of my journals. I don't care. There's nothing in it that he can't read. Just the timing isn't always the best. But he found one of my journals and he started reading through it and he saw how I felt about situations. And he came to me and he said, do you really feel this way? And I said, yeah, I do. There are a lot of times I do. And for him to see it in writing after the heat of that moment was important, and it helped us a lot along the way. So there's a lot to how to start with the re-engagement. It is little things. Clear your head. You can't be engaged when your head isn't there. Girl, I call mine my vomit journal. I love it. I need to write that on the top of mine. Maybe we need to decorate our journals and have a little class on that. Tomorrow we're going to talk more about communication. We're going to talk more about the right way to communicate, communicating our feelings, that it's okay to feel and it's okay to communicate those feelings. But I am getting off of here because we have to leave this place in the next hour or hour and a half-ish. And remember, we have my mama and her friends, and we call it taking the geriatrics to the next destination. And then we're going to head back to the lovely state of Georgia and be home. And it's weird, sometimes you just don't realize being home is important. Yeah, sometimes when you journal, you can find that you could have handled a situation differently. And I agree. And Elisa put on here too, midweek chat is today. We may actually need a lot of it, so if you've got time to midweek chat with her, it's like 3 o'clock Eastern time. Pop on. Again, don't forget, I've put it out. I'll put it out every day this week, more about the movie that we have coming up, not this Thursday, but next Thursday. Y'all have a blessed day. I'll be way more engaged tomorrow when I'm back home where I need to be, to where I can get my stuff situated here. But I did get organized this week while I was on vacation. Y'all have a blessed day. Remember, I can't do this without you. You are my family, my friends, my support structure. This journey is not easy, but having a family and friends who've gone through it and can lift each other up is super, super, super important. Y'all have a blessed day. I'm Stacy. This has been Walking in My Shoes. We are loving my veteran. Y'all have a great day. Bye.